So there are things that make us different, though we are from that same tree that branched into two different directions. So if we do not fight to maintain the integrity of the design, because as I say in my book, The Wounded Womb, design denotes function. And that phrase tells you that the physical body is not an accident of nature. The vagina is not an accident of nature. The penis is not an accident of nature. No matter what the occultists talk about the fact that we were originally hermaphrodite. No, we were not an original hermaphrodite. The original hermaphrodite was a spiritual creature. It was an entity that came together based upon etheric forces coagulating around a specific level of intent that was broadcast by the universal mind. The matrix for who you are, that you were created by, to make you both yin and yang, masculine and feminine, that matrix existed on a vibratory frequency where that was the environment for a hermaphroditic energy. But when you come into the lower frequencies, I don't give a shit how much they tell you that a gay person is closer to being the hermaphrodite, therefore closer to being divine. That's bullshit. The truth is that on this level, on this plane of existence, duality is the ruling polarity. And that polarity, that which we know as unity, manifests as duality in this vibratory frequency of existence. So the proper representation of polarity in this plane of existence, since we chose the coat of flesh, the proper way to represent the unity is in the duality that we see as yin and yang, masculine and feminine, electric and magnetic. We are polar opposites, though we are just polar frequencies defined at different ends of that polarity, of the polar polarity. And to maintain stability in this realm, the electric and the magnetic dynamic must be in balance. Once the magnetic principle is out of balance, once the electrical principle is out of balance, then on the physical plane, everything begins to fall back towards unity. And instead of having true unity, you have an aberration of unity, which comes out as what you see as homosexuality. So I don't give a shit what they excuse themselves as and who tells me that this is. Homosexuality, just like any other so-called imbalance, is an imbalance. It is a dysfunction. And it is not natural. It's normal, which means as a normalcy, it's normal because we're all pathologically sick and distorted and twist. Yeah, it's normal. When you're living amongst lepers, it's normal to have leprosy. But it is not natural to the organic stream of things. Yes, sister? Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to get that back?
In balance? Yeah, but you see, the society now understands that those who are in power know that the more they have and the less you have, the greater their power. But the more people there are, the more demand on what they have. So when you have homosexuals especially, and a growing number of them, it shows that the particular strain that we represent is now coming to an end. Because nature would never create her own demise. Let me say that again. Nature would never create something that would represent its own end. The homosexual male is not interested in the female, which is the natural attraction for procreation. The homosexual female is not interested in the male, which is the natural proclivity for procreation. If that is gone, that means that that aberration is a signal that within the genus there is a distortion that is creating a demise to that genus. And we are coming to an end. This is the end point. We are now on a fast track to a species terminus that is represented in the fact that homosexuals are being created at a vastly faster pace than ever before. Why? Because heterosexuals create homosexuals. Homosexuals don't create homosexuals. So we have to look at the strain that we are. Heterosexuals create homosexuals. Homosexuals don't create homosexuals. Heterosexual strain is distorted. Something in the genus is perverted. Thus we are creating creatures unlike ourselves, which is the story of the end of days. Yes, brother. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. And exactly. And that was the ones, he weeded out the homosexuals in his own species, his own race first, his own bund. But it's funny you said that, because it's excellent, because it also speaks about it in the Mahabharata, in the Vedas, in the Chinese, the Japanese book of Gods and Sovereigns, in all of the ancient books of all of the ancient civilizations. They've always documented the end of their days as parallel to the evidence and growing evidence of two things: the homosexual population growing, and the other thing being that women wanted to do the things that men did. And I'm not saying this as something that, what is it, happened in Chem, it happened in the Dravidian civilizations, and it's all in there, it's in the archives, but you're not taught to read. And here's the other part of it. They have understand what the body is. These things are kept from you so that you become computer analysts and drive beautiful cars. So that you become this and that. You're not becoming any. Sisters, a career don't mean shit, because after a while, you got the career, you got the house, you got the car, and then what? Now the frustration sets in. Now you start looking for women's groups, and you start looking for all different things to find yourself. They have systematically fragmented what was supposed to be a continuing and consistent whole, the way African societies, after thousands of years of getting it right, got it right when the Europeans showed up. But because it was so harmonious, it looked like it was dysfunctional to him, because he didn't understand it. His mindset was not there. So you don't read anymore. Yes, sister?
So are you saying that women, it's inappropriate for women to work out or to exercise? Or
No. No, I didn't say that. Calisthenics, aerobics, and these are military workout regimens. They were created by the military for men to get into shape within 9 months. These particular exercises that you see on the television were set up by men.
okay,
The education system is set up by men.
okay, for lack of a better term,
Mm-hmm.
is it inappropriate because I do work out? And ever since I was a child, ever since I was 2 years old, I've been athletic.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying, like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, there's societies like the Star Sex, they got something like the blues dance and all that. I don't know that now. But what
Well,
you know,
yeah,
saying that it's wrong or inappropriate.
it's wrong to do male exercises.
What's that kind of male exercise?
Lifting barbells, running 5 and 10 miles a day.
It's inappropriate to do any level of strength training.
No, listen to me. Your ancestors did strength training by dancing. They did strength training by yoga. Yoga is the most efficient form of strength training because it's infrastructural strengthening, whereas the so-called workout that we're dealing with is for overt or external strength. There is a certain form of strength that, if you notice, the athlete does not live longer than the people who are in the West Indies and in these old folks. Why? Because the athlete lives in a excited state consistently. So anything that you use physiologically is used up much quickly. And the thing about it is, as you begin to break down at a faster level, and you don't put the proper nutrients into your system, don't breathe the proper air, don't eat the proper food, the cells that you are creating are not as whole as the ones that died. So the ones that are being created from less, from pollution and from filth. So you shorten your life. Now they keep telling you, well, the life expectancy is going to be much older. No, they're gauging it based upon the old people that are still here. The ones that are 100 and 200, 112 and so forth. These people ain't going to be seen again. The only people that are going to be living to 112 are the ones that are going to be genetically altered. Because the people who live in these particular climates, these environments, we ain't living that long. Hell no. Don't even try to think about it that way. The shit that y'all are putting into your system as health food is going to shorten your lifespan. You might as well go back to eating cow.
But how is it, I never understood, how is it, like, you could say like grandmothers and great-grandparents, I mean...
Before the Industrial Revolution and before the time, yeah, and before the time we were growing our own foods. Oh yeah, of course. And remember the so-called slaves, the captives that were brought over here, some of them were in their 90s and 100s, but they didn't look it.
My aunt said that she had an uncle. My aunt right now is like in her 80s, but she said she'd never forget her uncle. Every morning all he had was a biscuit and some coffee, and he didn't use a toothbrush to brush his teeth.
Yeah.
White teeth.
Yeah.
And the man lived to be 130-something years old.
Yeah.
And had to walk every morning, every day, a biscuit and coffee. That's it in the morning.
Well, see, less is more.
Several miles to get to work.
Yeah.
And come home and always had dinner before 2 o'clock.
Okay, less is more. And you look at the way the pace of the people that lived back then. You remember, you're living in an accelerated pace because we want to keep up and keep pace with the white race, thinking that to run that white man's race and to keep pace with that race is somehow keeping up and getting better.
And lastly, what are you supposed to do? And I said, I was definitely teaching you this. When, okay, somebody who wants to live ideal, somebody who wants to really be into nature, but then when you do something like that, especially if it's on a mass scale or any group of people, they will pounce on you with military might.
Yeah.
They will do that. Well, we have to be able to, you know, like they put Abraham in the oven and he came out unscathed. Come on, move. They will pounce on you. Move. Philadelphia or
Well, again, how is it? Well, of course, but again, do we look at that as the point of reference for our development? Where does the courage stop and the cowardice begin? You know, do we say no, and no matter what they do we continue to keep this germ alive, or do we capitulate? Do we say that we know what is truth, but because we have the threat of this entity coming down on us, do we stop what we're doing? If 20 years ago I was not doing this, or Bobby was not doing this, and we weren't saying the things that we were saying, would we be gathered here today at this particular room? Would I have 150, 200 people gathering in Atlanta? Would that be happening? No. It is there's a time when you got to say, hell no. You know, what is it that we're going to do? Are we going to live like this? No. You got to stand up and you got to do what you have to do, because that is the only way that you are going to amplify that energy that is seeking to be manifest. That you represent that energy to the fullest extent, and if you fall in the process, that energy is already encoded in the Akasha to be picked up by the next strain that will pick up that same standard and move it forward. And that is life. That is what it is. This is what we've chosen to do and to be. We chose the adversary that we wish to fight, and we know who it is that we're dealing with. And very few of us are now waking up to that fact. Some of us wake up maybe 20 years. Some of us takes 20 years to wake up. But when we do wake up, that shit scares the shit out of the adversary. He wants you to stay asleep. That is why he is genetically trying to switch you off. He knows what your genes mean to your consciousness. For instance, the genetic part of your body is not that template that you see. It is a frequency band that is in your body that is transmitting information in the form of vibrations and light. Those little pieces that you see just happen to be the fuses that are part of the circuit. But you don't see the electricity that you put into the fuse. You can't take a fuse out and look and see what the electricity is. Can you see the consciousness inside of it? No, you could change the ohms or the amperage to the fuse and get a different kind of energy, and that's all he is doing at this time. What is happening is that the energy around this manipulation of the genes is to stop the soul from unburdening itself of the past experiences that have become etched or as a signature on the soul. The soul is a template of the body's experience in the flesh. It is what you carry away as the solar, stellar, cosmic, universal energy template that is the template of your experience while you're walking around in this illusion and this delusion that you call your life. This illusion is part of the work that you chose trillions and ages, time immemorial, time unconquerable ago, to come into the quest to spiritualize matter. Matter is the part of God that is the ignorance of God. That is the part that you took on the quest with Lucifer to go and spiritualize. Your participation in matter is what creates the knowledge that God has of itself. In so doing, the body itself now has a memory engram of the experience that it calls the soul. On the soul, there are deep signatures and there are light signatures of the experiences that you had. If you could remember all of the horror that went on in the past trillion lives, you would just blow up. So for everything that you have in this body, every time you take on the flesh, there is another awakening at the time you reach 21 years of age, the third cycle of 7. At the third cycle of 7, there is a hormone is secreted in the system that triggers the awakening of the soul's energy, and then that's the point where you begin to feel what you want to be and do. You become attracted to what it is that the most influential signal on the soul dictates is going to be your behavior. So here you are, this new soul, or this old soul with a new body, now getting ready to become awakened into itself, to find out what it must do to unburden past atrocities that it did to someone else, or past atrocities in your ignorance of yourself that you did to yourself or was done unto you. All of these experiences are now waking up in the form of your behavior, in the form of the way you're thinking, in the form of the way you're feeling you want to be. Now they found out that the genetic structures that form who you are, basically creating your diseases, they're called genetically transmitted diseases. These genetically transmitted diseases are evidence that the template has a programming that you are to work through in your new body. If you have somebody artificially removing that template signature that is supposed to be the guidelines for your behavior, if you come out crippled or some shit that you got to work through, basically making you think a certain way, remove that and you have systematically frozen that burden upon the soul. Because now the soul has no way of using the template signatures of the genes to unburden itself. It no longer remembers why it's here. It becomes a robotic functionary for whoever programs the genetic structure. And that is why they want your genetic structure, to trap what the soul must do as it progresses in the physical bodies, trap it to this reality at this particular level of development, and to use whatever's necessary as slave labor to maintain their particular position. Because those who are in charge, especially the ones who are fucking with us and manipulating us, they can't make the next quantum leap to the next dimension of reality. And because of that, they must manipulate your genetics and interface, crossbreed with you in order to reinforce their own genetics. And why do you think that commercials like Nokia for that phone call, that phone, has a white male sitting next to a black woman, and she ain't just black because she got straight hair and she's looking like she's white. She got afro puffs with African jewelry and everything. She's sitting at the other end of the couch in this loud ass party, and he says to her something that you don't hear either. He goes into his pocket and pulls out his Nokia phone, taps in her number, talks to her, and tells her, "Great cheeses, huh?" And as soon as she says, "Oh yeah," and at the end of the commercial, you see him get up from his end of the couch and go right next to her in her space, and she opens up to him. What you are looking at is the use of the black womb, who has the foundational genetics that cannot be distorted, cannot be fucked